Welcome to this Catholic bioethics moment. I'm Dr. Bridget Campion, and I'm talking to Dr. Moira McQueen about intrinsic evil. Moira, what is meant by the term intrinsic evil?
Intrinsic evil always sounds incredibly serious because
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
I think another way of saying an intrinsically evil act is an act that is always wrong. So intrinsically evil means an act that is wrong in itself. And if an act is wrong in itself, it can never be right. So it doesn't matter when or where or the circumstances in which it takes place. None of those factors count, no matter who does it. Nothing matters. It almost really focuses on the act, which is unusual because more often we're focusing on the person who's doing the act. But there is something so seriously harmful about the consequences of anything that's called intrinsically evil that it means that it can never be chosen. It can never be selected as something to do and be the right thing to do. They are just, if something's intrinsically evil, wrong in themselves, can never be done. It's maybe the closest to absolutes that we get in moral theology and Catholic teaching in general.
So these are acts that simply cannot be justified. Moral theologians are not to try to justify these things.
Right. Right.
Individuals must understand that, as you're saying, there are no situations, there are no circumstances, there's just simply nothing that can make this particular act good in any way. So, and the Church believes in the existence of moral absolutes like this, that the fact that there are intrinsically evil acts. So what sorts of acts are intrinsically evil?
Well, there's many, and some of them maybe don't sound as severe as others or as serious as others. But if we take something like lying or stealing or cheating, the areas which most people just already acknowledge that these should not be done because they are causing harm to people, then those are intrinsically evil. You know, I'm never justified in stealing something from you in terms of true stealing, you know, something that I don't need that I want and I just take it, those kinds of things.
Right.
So in those areas I think people understand too. And then there are more serious areas that people will talk about once we get into killing people, and we're not talking about war here or self-defense.
Right.
There are again some differences. But in terms of that intentional killing of somebody because you want that person dead, you know, so anything like that. I mean, most people, this is why they're called universal values, really, because again, they're not so much Catholic as they are immediately apparent to most thinking people that what you're doing here is just absolutely wrong.
Well, I was surprised when I was reading The Splendor of Truth, and it was quoting from Gaudium et Spes, and listing intrinsically evil acts, and certainly, of course, abortion and euthanasia are there.
Yeah.
But so are, you know, the exploitation of women and children, unjust working conditions, torture. It seemed to widen the range, almost taking us into, well, not quite social justice issues even, where there might be intrinsic evil at work.
Well, perhaps people would be surprised at seeing those listed, but when we stop and think about it, and I often talk about this, you probably do, when I'm, you know, conducting classes or doing work in parishes, and I ask about can anybody think of an act that's intrinsically evil? And nearly always somebody will say rape. In other words, there is no justification ever for a woman or a man to suffer that humiliation and degradation. You know, so people see that kind of thing. Cruelty to children. Sometimes the word, and cruelty to anybody, in fact, but it's even worse again when someone is supposed to be under our care, which is why child abuse, etc., is seen as so horrific. And so all of those actions all count as being intrinsically evil.
So, intrinsic evils. What is the Catholic Church teaching on intrinsic evil?
Well, its teaching is that it should never be done because it's so obvious to us when we stop and think about it in terms of the harm that it's just something that's beyond our rationality, perhaps, is the best way to do it. We are being irrational in many ways if we are causing harm to other people. But I think the Catholic Church says that evil should never be done. So so it does cover the lesser forms of wrongdoing as well. So intrinsic evil is again that idea of it would be so obvious to somebody that I shouldn't kill him or her, or so obvious that somebody should not be raped. You don't have to go into long discussions of whether or not this is allowable, morally permissible or not, because the harm is so serious. So the Church is very clear on its list, as you mentioned, of intrinsic evils, and it's not an exclusive list. There could be other areas that we just don't think about at the time, but we are asked to consider the level of harm that it's causing and whether or not it's degrading of other people, it entirely at a really serious level.
Thank you so much.